Hi everyone, it's Jen again, and we are at an end of another Otomejam week 8, going into our final week. So I have a couple of things that I wanted to talk about, just more as a post-mortem in some ways, because we are almost done. We're just waiting on a few assets, and we have to do some playtesting and some polishing and some getting our website together. But like if we had to launch like tomorrow, we could probably like scrounge by and have something that resembles a final game that's functional. But thankfully we still have another week to refine, but I have a feeling that there's a good chance that we may end up releasing a few days early. I know that Echo Berry and I are both planning on participating in Art Fight. I will leave a link in the description below if you're interested in taking a look at the Art Fight project and community. It's going to be my first time participating, and I don't plan on contributing heavily. I'm probably going to be doing like maybe a handful of character sketches, just because I do really enjoy doing character art. So yeah, that will be kind of like a fun little something different for me to try out. And I do like the whole like idea of like building community in Art Fight. So we are hoping to finish a little bit early so that we can kind of prepare for July for that participation, because we still have to make our profiles and stuff like that, along with our character design rotations and stuff. So yeah, what have we been up to this week? Finishing CGs, polishing up the endings, and implementing all of the copy edits that I got, that I think was probably around like 50 pages worth of copy edits. So shout out and special thank you to Jade Rose, because that was just a lot of work. Like it took me hours and hours to make the copy edits that that she pointed out, and so I can only imagine how long it must have taken her to actually write those corrections. So stuff like that is just completely invaluable, and I feel really fortunate to have a volunteer like that, who's also a super cool person and friend of mine. So yeah, let's see, what else did I want to talk about? Oh yes, so mainly this week has been a pretty slow week as far as like, I think I've stated in my other videos that you know, we finished a lot of our core mechanics quite earlier on, so this put us in a really good place, honestly, for this whole month. Was kind of working at a fairly relaxed pace. I got some weird itch last night where I was just like, oh, we have like a whole week that I could probably like come up with some new stuff to implement, and then I realized that it was probably overkill, and I kind of dialed myself back a little bit. So there is still going to be a little bit of extra things that we are going to be adding, such as achievements, just for little fun stuff. Nothing too major. And so I'm going to go ahead and move on to my development topic for today, since we are going to be coming close to release. I wanted to take a moment to talk about critiques, both giving and receiving critiques in a constructive and helpful way. Like if your goal in both giving and receiving critiques is to improve upon what you have, I think that there are some things that you can objectively look for. It's tough when we're both giving and receiving critiques, because we generally think of it as being something subjective, but I want to point out a few, I guess, helpful hints to help you maybe take a look at critiques in a way that's not so subjective and personal, and try to view them, I guess, a little bit more objectively. So firstly, I'd like to say that I like to give my critiques in ways that I would like to receive a critique. So I think the golden rule really does apply in this regards, that you should treat others how you want to be treated. And I always want to respect the time and effort that somebody is putting into their creations. So one of my rules of thumb is to always say something that I liked about it, as well as point out something that I think may be helpful. If I don't have those two things to say, then it's not really a critique, right? So either I loved everything about it and there's nothing that I could say that would improve upon the piece of art, because it just really just struck me as being, it's just everything that it needed to be. And in that case, then I'm just going to praise them, and it's not a critique. I don't need to look for something wrong, right? On the other hand, if I have absolutely nothing good to say about anything because it just really rubbed me the wrong way, I didn't connect to it at all, I don't know, it offended me on some personal level. I'm trying to think of a scenario where I would not be able to find like anything worthwhile or like a strength for me to like point out. Let's say that was the case, then I think I wouldn't be in a place to give a critique either. Because if I can't see the good in something, then I can't think of a way to like improve it in a meaningful way. It's obviously not for me. Like if I can't find one strength in a piece of art to center my critique around, to say this is what I think was the most effective part of it and you should really kind of like build upon that strength, then I feel like I don't understand it at that point. I don't know what they were going for, and it's just not for me, and I just don't have the comprehension of this piece of art to give a worthwhile critique. I think that it needs to speak to me on some level, that I like some aspect of it that I want to see improved. So those are where I start from when I am thinking about giving a critique. And then this would go for both giving a critique and receiving a critique, is that I don't think it's helpful to give a critique that would just be unrealistic to implement. So if somebody has a piece of work that has obviously taken like hundreds of hours that they've invested into it, and I give a critique that would basically require them to start from the ground up, I'm not helping them in any meaningful way. Telling them to basically scrap everything you have and start over is not a helpful critique at all. You're looking for them to create something completely different at that point. So I don't think that it's meaningful to basically say that. Like if somebody has something like they have a visual novel and you tell them to turn that into a first-person shooter, like how is that helpful at all? Maybe there would be some very niche case where you could actually like make those two things connect. But just generally speaking, if your advice is to basically like do something that would in an essence like scrap the entire project and have to rework it from ground one, unless it is in a very, very early prototyping phase, I don't think that that type of critique is helpful at all. And if anything, it's just like, you might as well just say, this is not for me. I don't like this at all. Like it's not constructive, in my opinion. So if I receive a critique along those lines, I really give myself permission to be like, well, that's objectively not realistic to implement. So this obviously wasn't for this person, and that would require like a whole different project. So I can objectively like filter that out without any weird feelings of like guilt or anything or insecurity or whatever. So and when I'm giving a critique, I think that's where it helps to have some degree of knowledge in the medium that you're critiquing, because if you don't have any, I guess, like authority, like you've never made games, you've never written, you've never drawn, if you don't understand like what went into the process of creation, then you're not going to know what type of a critique is constructive, because you don't know necessarily what would be a realistic change to make without having to just make it a completely different project. So that would be my second big, I guess, parameter for like implementing a critique. So the first one again was to point out something that would be helpful to make a improvement, a realistic improvement, and point out something that you felt was very successful, because I think people also need to know sometimes where their strengths lie. I think that's just as helpful as like telling them where they can make improvements. And then the second point was to make your critique something that's possible to implement. And then I would also say that like following that up, if you can give them some advice in that direction, then that would also make it a more constructive and helpful critique, as opposed to just saying like, I don't know, your XYZ is bad and garbage without telling them any ways in which they could actually improve that. I don't think is very constructive or helpful, and in fact can be hurtful. So if you think that maybe their animation is stiff, you could maybe refer them to the 12 principles of animation and suggest that they could add some anticipation, some follow through, frames of animation, and that would make it look more smooth and natural. You could say, I think maybe you could make that character move in more of an arc, and that would look more realistic than just having them like move kind of like straight up and down. That's sort of advice. And again, it does require you to kind of actually know a little bit about what you're talking about. Not to say that you're not entitled to an opinion. If you want to share, like, I didn't like this and I like that, and I'm just coming from a purely consumer mindset. I'm just your audience and I just want to share with you my feelings on your art. That's fine. You're totally entitled to that, and I enjoy reading about like what people liked and didn't like, and that's I highly encourage people to give that type of feedback, but it's not a critique in my opinion. That's just sharing your opinion. And as a creator, when somebody shares their opinion with me, I kind of take it with a grain of salt, because that is something that is completely subjective, right? It's not objective in any way. It's going to be completely personal to that person, and I recognize that I like to have kind of my own strong voice in my work, and that's going to make it kind of niche for a lot of people, and I'm alright with that. If you are trying to make something for more mass market appeal, then you may want to weigh people's kind of subjective opinions about your work more heavily, so that you can reach a broader audience and kind of know what people are looking for. But still, I would say that is not what I would classify as a critique. I would just say that is taking feedback. Maybe I'm just being a bit like nitpicky with how I use words, but I guess that's just personally what it means to me. And I don't give critiques that often, and I don't give critiques that lightly, because I do really feel like I should have something important. I shouldn't say important. I should have something constructive to say. And having something constructive to say does require a lot of like thought on my part to give the critique. And taking critiques, I know from like a creator standpoint, I'm going to take a lot of thought into receiving it. And so when I'm giving a critique, I will try to be very, very, very mindful, because I know when I'm taking a critique seriously, I will take that critique seriously. And every creation, there's a person behind that, and that person is worthy of respect. And I guess especially with online interactions, like, just try never to lose sight of that fact that these are all people. I mean, maybe some of them are bots. Maybe some of it is all like AI generated. But I like to, I guess, behave on the side of caution that I am most likely or possibly dealing with a person on the other end. And in that case, I want to make sure that I treat them with the respect that that I would want to be treated with. I'm not going to even say that they necessarily deserve, because I don't know them. But until I guess I've been proven otherwise, I would like to follow that golden rule. So share with me your thoughts on how you feel about it. This is just personally how I view this, but I'm open to having my opinions changed. Maybe you disagree. I have had, I guess, a lot of experience in certain art circles and in going to school and working in the industry a bit, so I feel like I can speak a little bit from experience, having been in a lot of situations where I have been, I guess, conditioned to take critiques and to give them. So yeah, I guess let me know your thoughts on that. I think that maybe if we all tried to, I don't know, I like to think of critiques as being support, as opposed to something that's like scary. I look forward to it. So I'd like to think of it as just being another way for us as a community to support each other. And, some people are not looking for critiques, and I completely respect that. And I guess that's probably why I don't give critiques that often, is because I don't know necessarily if that person is looking for a critique. So kind of when I was participating in the feedback quest, that was sort of an opportunity to give critiques without any worry, I guess, that the person on the other end may not be looking for that, because yeah, I totally respect that too. Not everybody is in a place in their life and their art where they are they're looking for that. They might be I don't know. I just want to meet people where they are at. I don't want to force my opinions or my views or even what I think may be helpful advice on somebody who, would not see it that way. Like, I want to be helpful and supportive, and if what I say would not be interpreted in that way, then it doesn't matter what my intentions are if, like, the person on the other end is not receiving it that way. So I just try to be respectful. And maybe that is just, like, the biggest rule of the golden rule of all. If you can't, if you don't want to follow any of the other, I guess, ideas, if you don't ascribe to any of the other ideas that that I personally have towards giving and receiving critique, yeah, at least let's try to agree on the trying to respect each other's humanity, because we are a social species, and I think we are at our best when we can move together collectively, cooperatively, all that kind of stuff. And I don't know if I'm just old and cynical, but I feel like we could use some more of that in the world. And I hope that I can be a small, tiny little pebble in the right direction. Like, I have my bad days, and I have my days where I'm just an extreme introvert, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to deal with people today. But those aren't the types of messages that I want to spread. Firstly, because I know a lot of it is just like me usually just, I don't know, being vitamin deficient and and stressed out, it's usually more of a me problem than it is an other people problem. Okay, well, I think I'm going to leave at that. Super excited about wrapping up this Otomejam. And yeah, it's a little bit scary, so wish me good luck. And with whatever you might be working on or working towards, or just living life, don't forget to enjoy the process. Take care. Bye-bye.